Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. So I thought it'd be interesting to take a little walk down memory lane and talk about 7 financial regrets that I have. Now, normally I am a person, I don't like or even believe in regrets. I truly believe that any of our past mistakes or whatever you want to call us lead us to where we should be and where we need to be. But for the sake of this video, I didn't know what else to call it. Maybe things I wish I wouldn't have done, or things I wish I would have told myself, or things I wish I could change. But you know, regrets gets the job done. But before I get into that, just a reminder to please like this video and please consider subscribing to my channel. All right, so my first financial regret is that I spent so many years spending every single dollar I made. Now, I have been working since I could. I probably started babysitting maybe around 12. I think I got my first real job at 15, whatever the legal age was. I was waiting for it so I could start. I've always liked working. I've always had a good work ethic. I have worked 2 jobs most of my working life, and even in college, I had a job lined up before I started college, and I worked 2 jobs most of college, including on all of our breaks. And I just never saved a dime of anything. Every single thing I made was fun money and spending on things, mostly clothes, shoes, and going out with my friends. Not even travel or anything like that. Or gas money. I spent it on gas money. But it was just something that I wish I would have done better, saving some of that money that I worked so hard for, or helped to pay for college. Which brings me to my next regret, which is taking out so much in student loans. So I went to college for 4.5 years. I changed my major my junior year from education to retail merchandising. That's why I had to go a little extra because I was a little behind. And I put every single dime on student loans. I put my tuition, I put my room or my housing, I put my meal plan, any sort of utilities, any single living or tuition expense, books, did I say books? Everything was done through my student loans. And I really regret doing that. It's one thing if I had to take out student loans for the tuition, maybe even the room, but I really could have spent some of that money that I made at all the jobs I worked paying for books or maybe a meal plan, just something to lessen the burden of having so many student loans after college, and not to mention the huge amount of interest I had to pay for those loans. So my next biggest financial regret is probably a surprising one, but that is my honeymoon. And not necessarily my honeymoon as a whole, but how much we spent. So a little background, when my husband and I got married, we had paid off all of my credit cards, but we were going into the marriage with a little bit of my husband's student loans, but 6 figures worth of student loans for me. However, when we got married, we decided that we would pay for our wedding and our honeymoon in cash. We set a budget of $30,000, $20,000 of it going towards our DIY barn wedding and $10,000 going towards our honeymoon. Now, our honeymoon was 1 week at Sandals in Jamaica. It's all inclusive. No, Michael and Jan, unfortunately, were not there at the same time, but I regret spending $10,000. So there were a few reasons why we decided to spend so much on our honeymoon. One of the things was my husband and I were not that well traveled. It was something that we were actually kind of insecure about in our dating years, because so many of the people we had dated have been so well traveled, and it was kind of looked down upon that apparently we hadn't traveled outside the country enough. But we decided, since this is really the first time that we're gonna go outside of the country together, and I think outside of Canada, that's the only time I've been outside of the country, we want to spend more. And also, it was our honeymoon. It was a once-in-a-lifetime vacation. We were in the best shape of our lives, and we were young, we had no children. We just really, really, really wanted to make the most of it for so many different reasons. So this is why we had such a high budget. So we decided when we were looking for a honeymoon, we picked the most expensive suite or house, whatever you want to call it, at Sandals. Literally the most expensive package you could get, complete with like the 24-hour butler service, all of that stuff. And so the reason why I regret it so much is that because it was so expensive to us, we had super, super high expectations, and ultimately we were just let down on really a daily basis there. And granted, I do think some of it was on Sandals' fault. I don't think they had the kindest people there, and I think what they listed out as some of the benefits of our package just really fell short. But I also think another big part of it was our expectations, and they were so high because this was so much money to us. And if we would have just spent half of that, spent $5,000, we still could have had a really, really great vacation there or somewhere else. We went on a 1-year anniversary trip. Obviously, the year later, we spent less than a third of what we spent on our honeymoon, and it was one of the greatest trips we ever had. It was another all-inclusive style resort for a week, and I think part of the reasons why it was so great is because we went in with much lower expectations. But when we were spending that $10,000 and knowing how much it was to us, we just expected basically the red carpet to be rolled out for us every minute of every day. And it just left kind of a bad taste in our mouth for our honeymoon. So it's $10,000 I kind of regret spending, or at least maybe half of that. So my next financial regret is spending so much money to impress people. I mean, I moved to New York City shortly after graduating college to work in the luxury fashion industry. So that alone was enough temptation, and you know, always trying to buy the latest and greatest to impress everyone. Granted, I did love fashion. I do love fashion. It's why I chose it as my career. But, you know, a lot of it went beyond my love of fashion, and it went to my need to impress people by my outer appearance. And this might have been with my hair as well, or, you know, whatever it may be. So I definitely look back at a lot of my years dating in particular. And I was one of those girls. I had a brother who worked for a newspaper at the time, making, you know, not a lot of money. So I definitely tried to pay at least half for dates because I did not think it was up to the guy. I did not think it was fair to always expect a guy to pay. But on a lot of first dates, I would go out and buy a new outfit for the occasion as if the guy knows it's a new outfit. I mean, it's like really silly when you think about it, but to make myself feel better. And I even remember dating this one guy who at the time was probably, I think, 5 years older than me, which when I'm 25, I think that really makes a big difference. He was at a very different level in his career. And so when we would go out in the city, we would go out to like really fancy, exclusive places, and they were just insanely expensive. I would often pick up tabs that I knew I couldn't afford that were going on my credit card. And I even remember for his 30th birthday, we'd been dating a little bit, and not only did I get him like a custom birthday present that was like really well thought out, but on his actual birthday dinner, which by the way, Princess Leia was sitting by us, I picked up the $300 plus dinner tab. I put it on my credit card. We went home, and I think we broke up a week or two later. I had maxed out my credit cards for this person's birthday, and it's one of those things I look back at and I'm just like, why did I do that? Like, I didn't have the money. I should have said something. I should have not acted all like equal. You know, I was so all about being equal, and I should have been like, I can't afford this, or, you know, tried to pick cheaper places, or really just let him, you know, pay for the tabs if he was picking these really expensive places. But it's just some of those things that stand out. I can't even tell you how many times I bought clothes I couldn't afford. I bought drinks and went out to places I couldn't afford. I got taxis that I couldn't afford. But I wanted to keep up this front that I could afford it. And also in my mind, I really thought I could afford it. But anyway, alas, here we are now. The lessons have been learned, but spending more than I had, and especially spending money to impress people that didn't matter. That's definitely kind of a regret. My next regret is not learning how to budget until my late 20s. So as I mentioned earlier, I am no stranger to working hard and working multiple jobs, and this included my post-college life once I moved to New York City. So when I first moved there and I got my student loan bills, I had to get a second job. So I worked my corporate fashion job during the week, and then on the weekends I worked at Williams-Sonoma. So on the weekends while I was working at Williams-Sonoma, I was buying lunch every day I was there. I was often going across the street shopping at this big store that was there. Oftentimes after work, if I was going straight out somewhere afterwards or rushing home to get ready, I would take a cab. Anytime there was a sale or something was marked down there, because I was often the one marking things down, I would buy it with my Williams-Sonoma discount. And it's just, that's another thing. I wish I could just shake myself and say, if you just budget, you don't have to do this. I worked 7 days a week for so many years, and if I would have just budgeted, not only would I have saved money, but I wouldn't have had to work that second job. I wouldn't have had to work 7 days a week, or at least not 7 days a week to survive. Maybe if I would have also had that part-time job, I could have sent some extra to student loans or saved some or started paying off my credit cards. But instead, I was spending every single dime because I didn't learn how to budget earlier. So my sixth financial regret is not paying off my student loans while I had a high-paying job. So if you're new here, I'm gonna give you a real quick backstory. I left my job in 2016. It was a corporate job in New York City to take on mine and my husband's side hustle full-time. So basically, I wasn't actually making any money or very little starting in 2016. So obviously, to leave my job, we had to run the numbers and really get on a tight budget, and we realized we could live off of just my husband's income. So when we look back and think how fast we could have paid off my student loans had we started budgeting earlier, it just makes us want to cry a little bit. If I would have started paying off my student loans and getting serious about them while I had a full-time job, we could have easily paid them off in under 2 years. How freaking nuts is that? It's actually painful. We probably, if we really would have got intentional, been able to pay them off in a year. And granted, I'm glad they're paid off now and it's all good, so all's well that ends well, but I really wish we would have started paying them off while I was still working a full-time job and bringing in a good income. And I will say this for the record, my husband since day one wanted me to pay extra on my student loans, but to me, I just didn't see the value in it. I just figured it was a payment I was gonna have for many, many years of my life. So unfortunately, it wasn't until I heard Dave Ramsey say it that I decided it was a good idea. So sorry, hubs. Okay. All right, my last financial regret is being cheap with some home fixes. And yes, this one is about not spending more money, because in the end, not spending more money up front is gonna cost us more money in the long run. So when we bought our condo, there were a few things we did right off the bat. There was a dog living here previously, must have been a pretty big dog, but they like chewed up a lot of crap on the walls and the moldings. So we had someone come in, repair all of that, and paint every single surface before we ever moved in. Shortly after moving in, we also had all of our carpets replaced. So with both of those, to this day, 4 years later, my husband and I both regret not spending more money. So with our paint, we got some discount, like builder grade paint that is awful to clean up. Basically, if you get any sort of scuffs on the wall and try to clean it, it like takes the paint off and ruin it. So anytime we need to touch something up, we have to literally repaint it, and there's a really good chance that before we move, we're gonna have to repaint our entire house again, which not only is going to be a huge cost, but now that our house is fully furnished, it's gonna be very annoying, and I hate painting. And the second thing that we regret not spending more on is our carpet. So our whole second floor of the condo is carpeted. And when we got it, we didn't go for the cheapest one. We went for a middle grade because the carpet before we moved in here was really matted down and we didn't want that. So we went for a middle grade. And we learned the hard way that we made a very bad choice. After like 2 years, it was already completely matted down. It's not soft at all. And I really wish we would have really spent the money, got like the best we could, and really understood value back then, because now we're not going to replace the carpet before we move, but we definitely know that it's going to affect the value in our condo because it's not going to be great quality when we move. So sometimes it's better to spend more money up front, because if you don't, there's a good chance that by the end, you're gonna spend a lot more money. It is so important to understand value. All right, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed taking a trip down memory lane with me. It was kind of reminiscing about my former New York City life for the most part, but I hope you enjoyed it. Please like this video and please consider subscribing to my channel, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye, friends.